So I'm going to do the same question another way. All this beginning stuff will be the same. I'm going to use the same points, and I'm still going to put it in standard form. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And this is how you will see this equation. If you see it, it's probably in a textbook. It's called the slope point form because you need the slope and you need a point. M, x1, y1. And that y and the x, they're just remaining. They have no subscript. Those are the ones that stay in there and give us our x and y in an equation. So essentially, it is the exact same equation as slope, just rearranged differently. The nice thing about starting this way is everything is on the numerator. So when you put in your numbers, and you know what, just for fun, I'm going to use the other point to show you get the exact same answer. It doesn't matter which point you use. So you put y minus y1, which is a 6, equals m. Our slope is still negative 2 over 3. X minus x1, which happens to be negative 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to multiply both sides by 3 so I can get rid of the denominator. When I multiply this side by 3, 3 times 3, well, 3 times 3 is 9. That's not what I want to do. I want to do 3 divided by 3. That gives me 1. But before I do that, make sure that you do the same thing on both sides. This is where people forget. This is what keeps it balanced. I have to write them on both sides. So 3 divided by 3 ends up being 1. So on the left side, I'm left with y minus 6. And on the right-hand side, I'm left with a negative 2. And I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of these brackets in here because there's a negative in front of a negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So inside my brackets, this is what I have. Now I'm going to distribute the numbers I have in front of the brackets. 3 times y, 3y. 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. Negatives times a negative is positive, but I have a negative times a positive, which is going to be negative 2x. Negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4. Now I'm in the same predicament I was before. I want to get rid of all the terms on the right-hand side, so I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So I've done it on both sides, but on the right-hand side, I'm left with 0. On the left-hand side, I have 2x plus 3y minus 18, and on the right-hand side, I'm left with negative 4. Now I want to get rid of negative 4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I'm left with 2x plus 3y, and that is going to be negative 14 equals 0. I made a mistake somewhere. Which one did I make a mistake in? Because now if I look at my two equations, you can see them. They look really similar. But this number C is not different. So let's go ahead and double check. 3 times y, 3y. 3 times 6 is 18. Unless I made a mistake on my previous question. 3 times 4 is 12. Oh, no? Oh, here it is, right here. Look at that. Right here, this is a minus 2, and look what I did here. I put a plus. So there's my mistake. Go and change that to a negative 2. So that is going to be negative 12. That changes that to a negative 14. And this changes that to a negative 14. And there it is. They are the same. Good thing I did that second way. If you have time on a test, you can check things out. Okay, so that's another way. Now, if you don't like that way and you really want to stick with y equals mx plus b, there is a third way you can do this. And I don't want it to be confusing. What I want you to do is choose a way that makes sense to you. Now, the difference between these two ways is really just your starting line. In this one, I started with everything on the numerator, and in this equation, it just is the slope equation, and then I rearranged it, okay? Now, if you really want to stick with the y mx plus b, I will show you one last way. Y equals mx plus b. Now, if you have both the slope, which we do, negative 2 over 3, and we have a point, 1, 4, I can use those two values to solve for b. So I can put in my y, which is 4, put in my slope, which is negative 2 over 3, and put in x, which x is 1, and then I'm just left with b. Ignore that. So now I only have one variable. That thing I want to solve for is b. Let's do the math to figure that out. So on the left-hand side, it's a 4. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And I'm left with this. So now I need to get rid of this term. So I'm going to add 2 thirds. But whatever I do on the right-hand side, I must do on the left-hand side. So I'll just squeeze it in over here. And I know on the right-hand side, these end up being 0. So I'm left with 4 plus 2 over 3 equals b. Now when you do this method, any time that the slope is a fraction, you're going to have to work with fractions. And I know some people don't particularly like this, but what you need to do is you need to get the denominators to be the same. To do that, I look at the denominator. In this case, it's a 3. The denominator over here is 1. So how do I get a 1 to become a 3? I multiply by 3. But I need to keep this fraction equivalent. So whatever I do on the denominator, I do on the numerator. Now let's go ahead and do that. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. And I'll rewrite everything else because I did not change that other fraction. Now I can see that the denominators are the same. So if you're not quite sure, I'm going to rewrite this another way. When you're adding fractions, you went through all that trouble to keep the denominator there and to have it be the same. So you go ahead and do the math with the top, and you get 12 plus 2 equals 14 over 3. And that's what b is equal to. Now after you go through all that stuff, that was just to find b. So now you're going to go all the way back, and you are going to write y equals mx plus b. Now you're not worried about y, you want that in there. And m is still the same old thing because it's still the same number. Put in your x, and your b is 14 over 3. Now, that would be all fine and dandy if you weren't worried about standard form. But if you're worried about standard form, you need to get rid of your denominators of 3. So you're going to multiply every term by 3. So here I am. I'm going to write in another line 3 times y. There I am multiplying by 3. I'm going to rewrite this term. I'm going to multiply it by 3. And I'm going to multiply this term by 3. And you can see what happens. This one remains the same. If you need to go ahead and do the math here, you can. But if you take 3 and multiply by negative 2 and then divide by 3, it's really like you didn't do anything at all. Because 3 divided by 3 is 1. So you're left with negative 2x. And here, same thing, 3 divided by 3, you're left with 14. And this is starting to look familiar. Again, you want to get all your variables onto one side. So add 2x to both sides. This here ends up being 0. Make sure you bring down your equal sign. Here you want to get rid of your 14. But you must do it on this side as well, and make sure you put the same sign in front. Don't do that silly mistake I made. So here, finally, 2x plus 3y minus 14 equals 0. And lo and behold, this time, I find every single answer to be the same. It really doesn't matter how you get there. Just know one way and know it well. And hopefully, whatever the question is, you can do it your way or understand all of them. Great. Hopefully that helped.